You're welcome back to the Gavel. The House of Representatives Committee on Police Affairs held a public hearing to look at the alarming influx of unidentified herdsmen into Benue State and threat to life and property in the state. A similar public hearing was held in the Senate weeks ago to also get the views of concerned Nigerians and security agencies on how to resolve this problem. Representatives of Benue communities are demanding the sum of 100 billion naira as compensation for victims of suspected herdsmen attacks in Benue State. They put up this demand at a public hearing organized by the House of Representatives Committee on Police Affairs to look at the alarming influx of unidentified herdsmen into Benue State and the threat to life and property in the state. Different community groups from the state, the Inspector General of Police and the Deputy Governor of Benue State gathered to make their contributions. The representative of one of the TIF community groups suggests how the situation can be managed.
The ranching of cattle is the best option and should be left as a private enterprise in the hands of the individuals. We put on record here, Mr. Chairman, that the two nations shall be asking federal government to pay compensation to us for the damages done. And the figure can be about 100 billion naira. We are making the relevant data available.
The efforts of the police so far and the intervention of the federal government in combating the situation was also on the front burner. Deputy Governor of Benue State puts forward this solution.
Let me start by acknowledging with a lot of appreciation the efforts of the police in trying to combat the situation and bring calm to the people. Benue State government has just one stand on this matter, which we believe will be the ultimate solution to the crisis. And it is ranches, and nothing but ranches.
The Inspector General of Police explains that security operatives are taking steps to curb the situation and have apprehended some persons.
We actually wanted the Commissioner of Benue State to be present here because he is the operational officer that is on ground, so that we will be able to hear sufficiently about the effort that we are making. We are not sitting down, we are putting our intelligence assets at the disposal of the Commissioner. I'm putting my logistic asset at his disposal. I'm giving him the administrative support that he actually requires to ensure that these things, they don't happen.
Meanwhile, during the week, the House of Representatives in plenary considered the state of the Umuahia-Ikwano-Ikotekpeni Federal Road. In a motion sponsored by Representative Samuel Onwibu, the House noted that the road is a major link for agrarian communities to get farm produce to the cities. The House is urging the Federal Ministry of Power, Works and Housing to urgently ensure that the work resumes on the road immediately.
Also worried that the agrarian communities along the highway have been completely cut off from the rest of the states, as farm produce can no longer be easily evacuated to the cities, resulting in increased poverty and huge losses in both economic and social activities.
Now away from the House of Representatives, Senate President Bukola Saraki says the National Assembly would continue to give the required attention to the fight against HIV/AIDS in the country. Senator Saraki stated this when he received a delegation from the Champions for an AIDS-Free Generation in Africa, led by the former president of Botswana, Dr. Festus Mogae, and ex-vice president of Uganda, Dr. Speciosa Wandira, in the National Assembly. The Senate president is promising that the National Assembly would play its own role in the areas of funding and advocacy in the fight against HIV/AIDS in Nigeria.
And I think in doing that is for everybody to be aware that we're not out of the woods yet in our fight against HIV and AIDS. We must get rid of HIV, and I think the objective by 2030, if we can do that, then we must do that. And as you say, second highest prevalent Nigeria's population, our role as leadership in the continent, we must play a very key role in doing that. And I can assure you that the Senate and the Parliament will play that role.
Now earlier, the leader of the delegation and former president of Botswana, Dr. Festus Mogae, called on the three tiers of government in Nigeria to champion and channel more resources for advocacy towards sensitizing the people.
AIDS needs the attention of the top political leadership. In every one of our countries, relative success was achieved when the head of state, when the head of parliament, or both houses of parliament were involved, even though you are not medical doctors. But you are very important for the fight against HIV and AIDS.
Let's take a look at some other activities in the National Assembly during the week.
On the bankruptcy and insolvency.
It's a bill which is sure to capture the attention of Nigerians. The Sexual Harassment in Tertiary Institutions Prohibition Bill. Senator Ovie Omoagege is a sponsor of the bill. He's seeking tighter statutory protection for students against sexual hostility and all forms of sexual harassment in tertiary institutions.
For far too long, sexual predators masquerading as educators have plied the corridors of our nation's higher institutions unchecked. Mr. President, in 2014, the International Journal of Applied Psychology noted that in Nigeria, sex for grades in the tertiary institutions is a reality, and the male lecturers in particular perceive themselves as teen gods, and such unprofessional behavior can be perpetuated unchecked.
The bill also stipulates as offences solicitation of sex or sexual advances by lecturers which result to intimidation, hostile or offensive environment for students.
Mr. President, there is also the suggestion that the female students harass the educators by their mode of dressing, and that this bill isn't doing enough to protect the educators. However, the educator can activate institutional disciplinary actions against any student predator. What is more, a student pays a price for saying no to a predator's demand for sexual favors. Whereas the reverse is the case. If a student were to harass an educator, the educator pays no price for saying no to the student.
The bill enjoyed the support of majority of the lawmakers.
Let me also say that it cuts across and is beyond tertiary institutions. We have noticed, Mr. President, that even banks employ women as baits to get bankable funds.
The most important thing, if we are going to do this, is to make sure that we put all these players into the code of conduct within the laws of existing universities.
We come from different backgrounds, and you know that in our different localities, we have an attitude towards sex. It is a secret something that people respect from time immemorial, except in few areas. But today, this brand of university lecturers have thrown this culture away, and they have brought in their own culture, which is sexual harassment, using exams and other things as a basis for doing that.
I would have appreciated this mover if not only we restrict ourselves to the tertiary institutions, but obviously we should look at even the secondary schools, which obviously we've been seeing sexual harassment. The latter was that of the Queen's College, which obviously is within, before the competent law of jurisdictions that are looked upon. Even the banking industries and the financial institutions too should be looked into, because the sexual harassment cannot only be within the tertiary institutions, but even here, sir, some couple of months, even in one of the dailies, a lady was sexually harassed in the National Assembly. So we have to look at all areas of its ramifications to see how the sexual harassment will be dealt with accordingly.
We must have tough laws that make it easier to prosecute offenders, as opposed to making it more difficult to prosecute offenders. So we will ensure that this bill is fast-tracked and referred to the committee and hopefully come back quickly so that we can actually pass it into law.
After the debate, the bill was sent to the Senate Committee on Judiciary for further legislative work. Now, this is where we draw the curtains on this week's edition of the Gavel. If you have any views on any of the issues discussed, please email us on thegavel@channelstv.com. Thank you for staying with us and see you again next week.